rolling.
All right, Marty.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right, Marty, come on over.
How's it going, Evan?
How's it going? Formally introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I am Marty Chester, and I am a Chicago-based artist and an actor.
Nice. Well, Marty, I just wanted to start off by saying how great it is to kind of have you here for this interview. I've known you personally for quite a few years through school and now obviously through a bunch of DaVinci Street Productions, and I just wanted to say it's a really nice moment to kind of be able to sit down with you here and conduct this muse with you.
Absolutely, I'm honored to be here. You guys are some of my favorite people, and it's great to be back in the DaVinci office this time.
Yeah, and so obviously you are our first muse as well for 2025. It's January 1st, and I wanted to ask you if you have any goals for 2025 on a personal level and on a career level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. On a career level, really I'm just trying to be more active in my artistic pursuits. I've kind of felt let kind of opportunities just come to me, and I kind of want to be a person that's chasing the projects that I'm really excited for, and just being at the forefront of like what I care about moving forward. And then on a personal level, we talked a little bit about it. I'm trying to be more communicative to my friends. I'm trying to just express more gratitude to the people that I have in my life, and really just foster an environment of love and connection, because I think that that's been a big thing I've struggled with in years past.
Awesome. Okay. So I guess my first question moving forward is, what are 3 different words that you would use to describe yourself?
Sure. I'd probably say ambitious. Reflective is another one. And then maybe the third would just be loving, I think, right now. I think that that's a big focus for me right now as well.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk about like what initially kind of drew you to acting. Let's go back to like the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like, was there like a particular moment that like kind of like made you realize how you love acting and how you wanted to pursue it? Like, kind of give me that story if there is one.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I was younger, my mom had signed me up for some like local plays, and I actually hated acting at first, mostly because I played like Bush #1 in like a giant production, and it just felt like a waste of time. But then around like 12 or 13, I had at the time been focusing on my like sports. I was really big in baseball. And, after I'd finished a practice, my mom was like, hey, they're having this audition for the Christmas Story at the Actors Theater of Louisville. You should go and audition. They were having it like a cattle call at a mall. It was a shot in the dark. Like, there was no way I was going to get it. Somehow, after 3 rounds of auditioning through it, I got the role. I ended up playing the kid who tells the other kid to stick his tongue to the pole, and working on that project just really gave me a light onto like what acting has to offer. I loved every person that I worked with on that, and honestly, it was really that production that got me inspired to be an actor, and I realized this is something I love and would love to do for the rest of my life.
Interesting. So what was it about that like first like that experience of being in that production that like kind of really kind of shaped your perspective on acting?
Yeah, I think with anything, when you start something new, you really don't know what you're going to be expecting, right? I've always felt like an awkward person. I always kind of felt like socially a little like weird. But I just remember the first day I got on set, the director and I, like, he introduced himself as well as like the whole cabinet of people running everything. And right out the gate, his name was, I think it was Drew. And I just remember instantly feeling like I was completely welcomed in that space. Like, not only was I welcomed, I was wanted, and they were excited to have me there. And it was like the first time in my life that I felt truly a part of a team, like even more so than like on baseball and stuff like that. And I really think like that like familial connection, that just instant acceptance of like who I was and like what I was here to do, that's what really like attracted it to me, and really what kind of got me stuck with it. I just kind of love the community,
Awesome. And so during that phase in your life where you kind of really started to take acting a lot more seriously as a passion of yours, how do you think that shaped you as a person as well?
Ooh, well, aside from being really obnoxious now, I would say really it boosted my confidence a ton. I think you have to have, that just comes as a proxy of doing it when you're in front of a bunch of people acting a fool. You know, you're gonna have to build some sort of confidence for you. I think it helped me figure out how to build and maintain relationships with people. And I think furthermore, it really taught me how to work really, really hard at something that maybe not a lot of people might care about at the very end, but that the effort you put into it, it makes it all worthwhile once you get in front of that audience is really what my big takeaways were probably with that.
So when you were in high school, you were also very involved in a lot of theater productions as well.
Oh yeah.
Including some production. I remember looking into one of the productions you did, you made a reenactment of The Breakfast Club.
We did. So we actually, that was not actually a show. I did a costume day with some of my fellow actor friends in the vicinity. We all dressed up like it. I dressed up, God, I can't remember the guy's name, but the bully character with like the leather gloves or whatever. I was like, yeah, that's me. I always like to envision myself as this like hardened, like kind of alt guy who lives on the fringes. So I really identified with him, and yeah, that was really, really fun.
Awesome. And what would you say your favorite like theater production that you did in high school was?
Ooh.
Or favorite role?
Yeah, so honestly, it would probably be, the show I always think about is this show, Mary Stuart. It was like a reenactment of the conflict between Queen Elizabeth and Mary, Queen of Scots, who was like the one person that could challenge her throne. And I played this radical Catholic named Mortimer, who was also the love interest. So it was great, you know, get to be in high school, kissing pretty ladies and everything too, but also just, it was a character that really allowed me to explore like idolatry, I guess like, just like a character whose mindset was really radicalized. And it was just so much fun. And there are so many moments from that production that I think about. And the one I will talk about, at one point in the play, I kill myself by stabbing myself in the chest. And we had like choreographed this whole thing with like blood packets and everything like that. And there was one show where like the entire football team had come to see it. And these are guys that like don't really like football or theater pieces that much. But they were super engaged. And when I went to kill myself, I could hear the entire line of them go, "Oh shit! Oh shit!" They were freaking out. And that to me was like the most rewarding, I think, experience I've ever had on stage, was just having those guys like really locked in and really just reactive to all the stuff that was happening with me.
How euphoric is that feeling where like you kind of get a visceral reaction out of people as you're performing on stage?
Oh, it's like nothing else. I mean, it's everything. It's better than drugs. It's better than like anything that I've done before. More importantly, I would say it just feels very validating because, you know, as an actor, your whole job is to make people feel something, you know, and in a world where it's very easy to kind of clock out, you know, that's what you want. So to have big reactions like that from people, particularly like in person, that's a thing that you can't really get on film. It's unreal. And I think that that's why a lot of actors prefer theater pieces, for instance.
Yeah. So during that period of time in your life when you were doing a lot of stage acting, did you ever think that you were going to transition into film? Was that always like the end goal, or did you enjoy theater?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I honestly thought that I would stick with theater for my entire life. I mean, it's what I knew. I didn't really have connections, as you can imagine. Growing up in Kentucky, there aren't a lot of like filmmakers, and I did do some student projects, but they were so bad. It was so hard being on that set sometimes. And you know, because it's just like high school guys with like a camcorder kind of recording stuff that's happening. So I never thought that I would be getting into film, but having done so, I've now almost switched completely, and I almost prefer being on camera more than I preferred doing the theater stuff.
Interesting. So I guess my follow-up question to that is now that you've kind of made that like big transition where you're doing primarily film work, do you ever like miss that like immediate reaction that you get from audience members?
Sometimes, but I've been very fortunate to have been allowed to go to like premierings of my shows, and so in a more removed way, I'm still able to get that kind of reaction. It's just not with the spotlight on me directly, if that makes sense. So part of me does miss that, but there are just as many rewarding moments being in film as well. And I mean, having being able to watch myself and have people react around me in an environment is just like a very strange, like it's really incomparable to that and the theater experience, but it's nonetheless just as rewarding as that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so then after high school, you went to DePaul.
Yes.
You were in the theater school at DePaul, and how did that period of time in your life kind of further shape your craft and shape you as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, honestly, college was crazy because it was the first time in my life that I kind of got a little jaded on acting, for real. I was not in an environment necessarily where it was like super conducive. It felt very competitive and all that. And I think what it did more than anything, aside from just the usual, teaching you how to perform and like teaching you better ways of getting into character, I think it really helped me evaluate like what I want from my creative craft, which to me, I think is the most important thing as an artist. Like you need to understand what you're trying to get out of this. And once you understand that, you're able to, kind of go with what I said in my resolutions. You're allowed to be more active in that. You're able to be more direct with the choices you're making. And I think by proxy, you're just able to be a better artist just generally.
So what are you trying to get out of that creative process?
Oh, aside from copious amounts of attention, I think really, as an artist, the big thing I struggle with, and I've just struggled with this my whole life, is really just recognition. Like, I just want to kind of be able to show people, like, hey, look what I can do, you know what I mean? And I think, like, furthermore, I want to be able to put art out into the world that really has an impact on people. Like, I want people to, whether it's just enjoy a few minutes out of their day to watch a performance of mine, or to have like something radically alter them and impact them in a deep state. Like, that's kind of really what I want. And then, as a proxy of that, I get my own selfish desires of all the attention and everything as well, because I'm serving people with what they're looking for. And that's really just having that deep emotional like change. That's really what I'm looking for, is to change people's feelings.
Yeah. And I guess my next question is, how important is it for you yourself to also get something out of your performances as well? Because obviously when it comes to being an actor, there's obviously like, you're obviously making sure that you are getting the reactions from other people, making sure that you're resonating with them as an actor, but how important is it for you to kind of resonate with yourself as you're kind of going through that creative process? And do you find that difficult to do?
Yeah, I think it's, as with anything, I don't think that you should be doing anything that's not serving you or giving you some sort of like growth. And I think like it's, for that reason, it's super, super important to find the things like in a character, right, that like you resonate with, or things that you're critical of, because the best part about being an actor is you get to be a bunch of different people, and you basically get to play Sims in real life and be like, oh, am I going to be like a dentist today? Do I want to be a dentist? Like, is that something that I am interested in, just as like me, Marty, as the actor? So I think it's super important. And I think that process is easy, but I think that it's only easy if you are open and receptive to the possibility of being changed as well. Because with anything else, I think as an actor, you have to be open to change. You have to be open to kind of the varying degrees that things happen at. And, it goes back to the classic thing they taught me in theater school, which is don't judge your characters. And the reason being, I think, is because you never know what you're going to get out of them, and you never know what kind of person you're going to become, having, been more confident or being more feeble or whatever it may be. Like, whatever the character trait is, you're going to learn how you behave as that type of person. So yeah, I think it's easy, but you have to have that openness,
Yeah. And one of the words that you used at the beginning to define yourself was reflective. So what role have you had, whether it was on the stage or on film, what role would you say really kind of made you reflect the most, and or like helped change you as a person the most?
Sure. I mean, every one of my roles has done that to a varying degree, of course. I think the biggest one was actually my recent project, Scream Till You Bleed. I played a character, a punk rocker. That's kind of why I have this haircut right now. I played this punk rocker that was dealing with a lot of like clinical depression and all this stuff and like anger issues. And it was a character that was really close to home for me. It was a person that like I have lived a lot of my life as just a regular person. And so to go in there and like deconstruct all the differences of like how this guy behaves and how I behave and like almost seeing how I could be this person really, honestly, like in a different set of circumstances that I was given. It forced me to kind of do exactly what you described, reflect, and you have to think about like, who am I? Who am I really? And am I trying to be this guy? So I would say it was probably him of all the people. His name is Buck, by the way. That's Buck, his character.
Yeah. And has that come out yet, or is it coming out, or?
It will be coming out. So we're looking to air it in the spring of 2025.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when it comes to the preparation for a role, like, do you have like, I know it varies like character to character, obviously,
Right.
but like, is there like kind of like any like rituals or techniques that you go through to like get into a character?
Great question. And this is where I'm going to be a little controversial. I tend to find that super crazy, intricate like processes to get into characters actually takes me out of it more. So what a lot of the work I do is more background work, understanding like what are the given circumstances, like what is this guy, like where is this guy at in his life? And then trying to use that and inform myself while stripping away what I have now. So it's less of a process, like a lot of actors will do strong, like very long vocal warm-ups or stuff like that, or like be in the character outside of it. I myself just try to use the information that I've researched and just lock in once I'm there. So I would say I don't really have a process, and I actually always say to a lot of people, don't think about the process, because then you're thinking about the process and not the character. But I'm probably gonna piss off a lot of acting teachers that I had in the past, because they're very much about the process, if you will.
Yeah. And so what's been the most challenging role that you've played so far?
Probably, honestly, it was probably in Make It Laugh with the comedian character that I played, because I myself am not like a particularly like comedic person. Like I'm not good at like a stand-up, for instance, right? And so that role really kind of forced me to learn about cadence, learn about like line delivery, learn about like how a comic is really gonna get up into a space, and like putting myself into an environment where you know, I don't do stand-up and I have to do a stand-up routine in front of an entire room of people, really forced me to kind of learn a lot about like my own delivery on stuff, for one, but also just like, wow, is it so impressive that people are able to do stand-up as well. That's like a big takeaway for me. So I would probably say like that role in particular challenged me maybe the most.
Yeah, and I remember during Make 'Em Laugh, you referenced that like you really gained inspiration from a particular comedian. I forgot if it was Andrew Schultz or Mark Norman. I can't remember which, or I might have maybe neither of them.
Oh, I can't remember. I mean, the big takeaways, big inspirations for me are like Louis C.K. God, what is the guy that's really famous now? Shane Gillis, I think is him. He's a big one as well. But there was one guy, and I can't remember his name, but he had a very specific style that's kind of like one of these like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, did you see that thing over there? It was like one of those, and he was a big inspiration for me. I forget his name now, of course, so put on the spot.
Sounds like Mark Norman.
It might have been, it might have been, yeah.
Okay, nice. Besides that, I know you also have dabbled with improv as well.
Yes.
You performed at Second City Improv as well.
I did, yes.
So walk me through that, because obviously that's very different than like, because it's very much like on the fly thinking, and like how did that kind of shape you as an actor, and did you enjoy that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Improv for me is the thing I would emphasize the most for any person that wants to be an actor. I think it's unfortunate, because if you were going to ask what was maybe the most challenging thing for me, like not in a role sense, it probably is the improv side. But it was super fun. I had a blast with it, and it's exactly that. I mean, I think why improv is so important for actors, and why I would say really I think it's the foundation on which acting is born, is when you're in a scene with someone, you're never really going to know what they'll do. You know what I mean? Like, you do have like a structure, and that is what the script is for, but you know, I can't even count how many times I've had a person react to something I said to them in a way that I wasn't prepared for. And I think, like, if you don't have those skills to be able to kind of think on the fly and jump into things very quickly, you're going to be like, we need a new cut, we need another take, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So improv is super important. It's also really rewarding, and I think for any person like myself who doesn't think of themselves as very funny, it will make you funny at some point, because you'll be around I worked with some really, really talented improvisers. And one of the guys actually is doing stand-up now, like, professionally. And it's like, you learn so much in an environment where you don't know what you're gonna do next, you know?
Yeah. So when it comes to film acting, obviously, there's a lot of stop and go when it comes to a film production, right? And obviously certain circumstances kind of happen where, you know, maybe a set day isn't going as you plan. How do you find that, like, tedious process of filmmaking as an actor? And, like, are there any instances where, like, you know, maybe things weren't going right on a film set one day that, like, you really kind of had to remind yourself to channel this character?
Yeah, I think, I think, like, honestly, handling that tedium for me now, not super problematic. I think a lot of it just comes down to who you're working with. I mean, if you're on a very, like, regulated set, you don't really know people super well, that process can obviously be a little bit more difficult. In terms of staying checked in, with my particular style, it's not super hard, because I'm a person that does feel comfortable, like, switching the on and off switch of, like, whatever character I'm playing. I can be, you know, whoever it may be, like Sal, for instance, is one I think of off the top of my head. Like, I can go and just be him at a drop of a hat, you know what I mean? So that transition's never too tough. I think it's just about your environment. You got to find your own things. You know, for me, if I can't talk to my friends on the set, I get to play on my phone. And honestly, I think of that as a joy. And I think it's like that. It's the way you get through stuff like that is reminding yourself to be present and trying to find the joys in the mundanity, or the slog, if you will, of just kind of having things happen slowly and expecting the unexpected. Once again, it's that improv training.
Yeah, and I've said this to you personally before, but I'm happy you brought up Sal, because there was that one day where we were shooting arguably one of the most important scenes, where you and the character of Frank, and You Can't Fight in here, are sitting down, and you kind of give this whole monologue about how you want to move on and how you're tired of, like, the tedious life that you're living in this small little hometown. And behind the scenes, there's obviously a lot that was going wrong. The Camaro obviously died out and everything like that.
It did, yeah.
We went over, like, quite a few hours. And I always say this to not only you, but to other people as well, that one of the most impressive things I've seen from an actor is you were clearly, I could see you did a really great job kind of suppressing your emotions, but I could see the visible frustration, because I think you had a flight early in the morning as well.
Something along those lines. Yeah, I was probably doing something.
And it was amazing that, like, you know, with the proper modifications that we made to, like, keep like the filming going, with all of these setbacks, you were able to just very flawlessly still, like, channel what you needed for this character in, like, a very pivotal moment in the film. And, like, that really kind of says a lot about how you are as an actor.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, for the record, I was not maybe as upset as I seemed. I think I felt fine. And I think it's like one of those, you know, once again, I am in an environment with people that I trust, with people that I care about. And, you know, you can't, and I think this is the thing too with acting, and this is a whole side tangent, but, you know, why they tell you not to play the emotion is the same thing. Like, it's like in real life, right? Like, I can feel frustrated in real life. Like, I can't control that feeling. That's just gonna come out of you. What I can control is how I treat people, how I behave, right? Like, the choices that I make. And so, you know, that in itself is a lesson on acting, right? It's like, don't worry so much about how you're feeling necessarily in a moment, right? Whether it be good, bad, anywhere in between, you shouldn't focus on that. Focus on what you can do, because that is the thing that you have control over. You don't have control over your emotions. And it's, you know, that's really the big thing I would say for anyone is don't worry about the feeling, worry about the actions that are coming out of it. That's really what I care about.
Yeah, and going on this theme of, like, setbacks as well, obviously as an actor, there's a ton of setbacks that come with being in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
And with this kind of this idea of rejection, right? Because obviously, like, as an actor, like, you definitely deal with a fair share of rejection.
Oh, yeah.
No matter who you are. How do you handle that rejection in an industry like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying to you to say that every single one of them is water off a duck's back. I mean, it does hurt occasionally. Really, the best thing that I would say for anyone is just remember that, because now that I've been moving into other roles too within filmmaking. I was actually a casting director at one point. I was a casting director for an upcoming feature I'm going to be working on in the spring, and it's not personal. Like, I will tell you right now, casting has so little to do with like the way you looked. Half of it isn't even because you were a bad actor. It's really like, did we see this choice that we were looking for? Did you get as close as possible to it? And it's just like that. Really, it's about remembering that this is not personal, and remembering that it has no reflection on your worth, and that you are still a very talented person.
So looking ahead into the future of you as an actor, where do you hope to see yourself? Like, what's like the end goal for like your acting career?
Aside from being famous?
Like, what are your aspirations as an actor beyond the ideal like fame and everything like that?
Of course.
Like, what are you hoping to get out of this career for yourself?
Totally. I mean, I'm hoping, on a personal level, to be able to tell stories that I really care about and kind of pick the stories and, have my own writing be produced. That's a big focus for this upcoming year. I have a project I'm trying to get a crew together and figure out how to make that happen. My ultimate goal is just to be able to make like features for myself, and then if not being able to do it directly, am very happy to be in a production style space. I think what you guys are doing here at DaVinci is super inspirational. You guys are like a group I want to model off of, because it's like I see what you guys have been able to attain, and it's like if not working collaboratively with you guys, it's like I would like to be in a role like that where it's like I'm able to help my friends tell the stories they want to be able to tell. You know what I mean? So
awesome.
Those two things, I think.
And with other aspiring actors, like let's just say, like, do you have any pieces of advice for them that you would like to give?
Ooh,
like lessons you've learned?
Yeah, I would say trust your gut and really trust, like, don't always worry. Like, if you feel like a thing is not working for you, try something else. I think the biggest thing that I always talk about, I had an agent for a very long time in the city. I had like the best one in the city, and I realized that for me it wasn't really what I wanted. I didn't really like the kind of grinding the auditions thing, and I've pivoted. And in the last like year and a half since I've done that, I've done more acting now than I've ever done. And so I think like trusting yourself, take risks, and make your own stuff are the biggest three things I would say. Because if you write the characters for yourself, you will always have roles to fill. So that's what I would say.
All right, so my final question, it's a two-parter,
Okay.
is what do you want to tell yourself from 10 years ago, and what do you want to tell yourself 10 years into the future?
10 years ago, I would say stop having such a stick up your butt about things. Relax a little bit more. Have fun. Don't take things so seriously. Everything's going to work out. You're going to be fine. What I hope to be able to reflect on in 10 years is all the lessons I just talked about. Is like, I hope that trusting my gut, I'll be like, yeah, you made the right call there. I hope to be able to look back and say, dang, that guy's way braver than I was, because right now I would not be making the decisions that he was able to make in this moment. Like, I hope I live I don't know, I want to call it like a scary life, but a life that's like full of risks that put me in places that maybe are uncomfortable now, but when I'm 35 or whatever, I'll be looking back and I'll say, that was the right choice. It was good that you were not afraid.
Well, as your friend, I've always admired like the head that you have on your shoulders, and I have no doubt that you're going to kill it. You have been killing it, and I think you're going to continue to do so.
I appreciate that.
I'm very excited as your friend to see like what comes of this career. So,
well, thank you, man. I'm excited too, and hopefully we all get to raise the boats together. The rising tides raises all ships. So, yeah, we'll be seeing all of you guys here in the future. I'm certain of it. Let's make Chicago the spot. That's what I believe. I think Chicago is the next Hollywood. If I was to make a bet, I will say that right now. I think Chicago's the next film spot.
Only time will tell. Thank you, Marty. It's been an absolute pleasure as your friend to be interviewing you. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Evan. It's great seeing you as always.